r/AskReddit. Multilinguals. What's your they didn't realize I could understand their language story? My dad grew up in Egypt and now travels the world for Dole, the fruit company. Once he was in Morocco at a plant, who were possible suppliers, and they tried to deceive him. They showed him the safety guidelines that were written in Arabic, but were describing different standards in English. My dad doesn't look like a typical Middle Easterner and has a very nondescript accent, so they thought they could fleece him. After the dude was done talk, my dad says that's not what it says, and the guy says what do you mean? My dad repeats the statement but in Arabic. The guy apparently dropped his jaw and all he could say was you speak Arabic? Needless to say that Moroccan plant did not get the gig. Also props to your dad for understanding Moroccan Arabic. No native Arab speaker can even understand it. Not me, but my dad. We are from South Africa. My dad speaks 5 English, Afrikaans, similar to Dutch, French, Italian, and German. He emigrated to the UK in early 1995 when a lot of other South Africans were doing the same due to embedded racism of a fledgling nation. But I digress. He was on the underground in London when he overheard 2 guys speaking about a pretty woman on the train in Afrikaans, my dad's native tongue. According to dad, they were being incredibly rude and using quite graphic descriptions of what they wanted to do to her. My dad decided to speak up and told them to duck off and to not speak to people that way. They don't know who is listening. The 2 guys looked horror struck and shut up immediately. The lady turned to my dad at her stop and said, in fluent Afrikaans, I bet they couldn't do half those things with their tiny dicks. My dad just laughed in shock and watched her get off the train. Pretty hilarious. The ending made me lol. Yep. That's 2 for the price of 1. They got ducked over twice when talking about trying to duck someone over. I'm a black American. My dad was military and stationed in Korea from his late teens to mid-20s. He picked up on the language, and as a child he taught me. It was like our secret language to talk around my mom with. She hated it. Anyway, I went to college with a large Asian population. While me and some friends were in a study room, a group of students came and I asked us to leave so they could use the room in English. There was no time limit, no sign up, no nothing where they had that right. So I explained that we were here first, why do they want this particular room? Then they start speaking Korean and say something along the lines of ugh, of course the black bitch is being difficult, they've been here for a while, they need to leave. Maybe we can lie and say the professor reserved it. I respond in Korean, call be a bitch in English, so I can punch you and everyone in this room knows why. Their faces turned bright red. They couldn't say anything, they just looked at me in shock and then left the room. Ooh, shoulder punch that bitch. Oh man, I hope you're telling the truth cause this is my favorite story in this thread. Not me, but my dad, very white guy with equally white Irish last name, was born and raised in India. He speaks a variety of languages, Gujarati, Hindi, Konkani, English, Portuguese, etc. He was at an airport and sitting across from 2 young Indian women. One was saying to the other in Hindi, look at that fat old white guy over there. My dad got up, walked over to them, and greeted them in Hindi, proceeding to make small talk about their flights and days. From his telling, there was a mix of shock and absolute embarrassment coming from them. He smiled and walked back to his baggage. Holy shit, my mom talks a lot of crap about fat, while people in Urdu may, oh I'm so scared this is gonna happen to her someday. Sorry I couldn't help, but overhear your gossip, and I love gossip. What old fat white guy are we talking about? With a shit-eating grin on his face. Well, my great aunt told a story of how she once went into a butcher shop. When she walked in, the butcher was talking with a customer in Russian, which she spoke. The butcher saw my great aunt walk in and told the costumer, in Russian, that he'd take care of this old hag and then continue the conversation. So my great aunt, in English, asked for pounds and pounds of cold cuts, all sliced and wrapped. When it was all ready, she told him, in Russian, to shove it up your ass, and walked out. God, I love that woman. Revenge is best served in cold cuts. I live in England, but I come from Poland, and am fluent in Polish alongside English. Couple of days ago I was ordering at a Subway when two Polish employees started talking. It went something along the lines of this fat ass wants chicken and bacon and they laughed. On a side note, I feel like that's not that uncommon of an order, right? When it got to putting vegetables on the sub, I gave my order fully in Polish with a big smile on my face. The order cost me £4.80, but the looks on their faces were priceless. IDK, what's wrong with those people? Chicken and bacon is an excellent combination. I'm not excusing their behavior. But when you work in the service industry and you are abused by shitty people for years, it tends to make one resentful towards the customer as a concept, and aiming slights at them with cowhawkers helps blow off steam. Oh yeah, for sure, I understand people treat them like shit and it's a good way to stay sane in the workplace. I wasn't at all offended, just thought it was quite funny. I was solo traveling in Morocco. I'm 22/female and speak Arabic enough to understand conversations, basic words and phrases, etc. I was trying on clothes at a small shop and there were two women helping me choose what to try on. They started talking about me in Arabic, saying how I would be a great wife for one of the ladies' sons. They were going on, and as I was leaving I responded in Arabic, "No thank you, but I appreciate your help," and they were stunned. Good thing you could speak enough to get by. You could have been in an awkward situation. As a Moroccan, this is so funny, given how many times I've heard people talking like this. When I was doing my exchange studies in China, native Russian, I was riding a subway in Shanghai. At one of the stops, a mother and her daughter sat beside me. The daughter was maybe 4 or 5, and she wouldn't stop looking at me. Then without turning her head she started asking her mom, "Mommy, why is Mr. so strange? Why is his hair strange?" And so on. I didn't react, as if I didn't speak Chinese, and the mother patiently told her daughter, "Mr. isn't strange. He's just a foreigner. They look different." I thought it was really sweet, so I started talking to both of them in Chinese. They were very nice, and I hope they're doing great now. Wholesome. I spent a semester in Beijing, and I found that people would stop and take pictures with me. I'm 6 feet 3 inches, blonde haired and blue eyed. I couldn't figure out why these girls kept taking pictures with me, so I asked one of the people that was taking us around Beijing, and he said, "Oh, it's because you're exotic here." I was on the subway in New York City a few months ago when a family sitting across from me was playing I Spy in Hebrew with their kids. The parents went around describing each person they saw on the train, so when they got to me, I decided to play along. I looked up from my book, made a funny face, and covered my face with the book before the kids could find me. The parents started laughing and said to their kids, "I spy someone who understands us." The parents and I shared a good laugh about it, while their kids got really excited that someone else spoke Hebrew. They never figured out who it was, but it made my commute a lot more fun. That is so painfully adorable. I wish I could give you more upvotes. What a wholesome story. Really cool. Love that about New York City. My significant other is a tattoo artist who can speak Bulgarian, Turkish, English and German. One day we were queuing in the supermarket and two guys behind us were laughing and snickering. She turned around and said something to them. Afterwards she was laughing, while one of the guys went bright red. Afterwards I asked her what that was about. The guys were like, "Look at her arm. Those tattoos. Disgusting. How can you tattoo a naked woman on yourself?" In Turkish. My significant other turned around and said, "Thanks bro." Street first, the guy asked her to repeat, because he didn't even register that she could be speaking Turkish, and assumed he misheard English. That's when she said for the tattoo opinion. It was funny from there. The guy apologized and said he has never felt so much shame in his life. His friend was saying at least buy them, my significant other and I, some beers. This was in a small town outside of Dublin City, so I can understand why they didn't think there would be any Turkish speakers around. At least they apologized, though it's better than getting all huffy and leaving. Was a high school student in Toronto, but I speak Slovak, which is similar to Czech and Polish. I was going to school on the subway in the morning and two good-looking women started to talk in Polish right next to me. I usually like to strike up conversations with fellow Central/Eastern Europeans. Unfortunately, they started talking about how one of them has had a burning pee problem. With nowhere to move on the packed subway and no headphones, it was an awkward thing for a 15-year-old to hear from two ladies. It got a little worse later, when they started to talk about women problems. Now I have no issues with that convo nowadays, of course, but 15-year-old virgin me was a bit mortified. A long 45 minutes. Something similar happened me, though just last week. Also in Toronto, huge Polish/U community in my area. I was on the bus and two ladies started speaking Ukrainian. I leaned forward to say hi, just as one said my vagina burns so much, it's so ducking itchy I want to tear it off, and instead of hi I gave a little gasp as my jaw hit the floor. Her head snapped towards me, and we both turned red as tomatoes. She got off at the next stop. I've said this before. It happened a while ago. I went to a psychiatric emergency ward once and asked for help and if they were comfortable to speak English. I understand Danish, but have a hard time making myself understandable in it, and didn't really feel like an idiot at a crucial time of my life. I stayed there for 4 days without anyone realizing I knew what they were saying about me right in front of me. 2 of the nurses thought I was cute. 1 doctor thought I was lying all the time. A patient thought I was a spy for the staff. A lot happened in those 4 days. It made my stay way more enjoyable than it should have been. I understand Danish, but have a hard time making myself understandable in it. Don't worry, so do the Danish. You've reached the end. You're a star. Destroy the subscribe button for more like that.